Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to quickly share how to work with files in OpenAI's Assistant API, specifically how to use it to produce visualizations based on the data present in the file. I'll use this CSV file, which contains a person's monthly earnings and savings data for a particular year. So there's monthly data, which has got both earnings and savings. We'll provide this file as input to the assistant and ask it to produce three visualizations for this data. Let's look at the code now. Okay, here's the code. Let's first import the necessary packages that we need. And then let's set up the OpenAI's API. Then let's go in and create an assistant. Here the assistant is a simple one. We give a name to the assistant and we say you're great at creating beautiful data visualizations. Your task is to analyze data present in CSV files, understand trends, and come up with some data visualizations relevant to those trends and provide a brief summary of the trends observed, right? So we give this model GPT-4 1106 preview. And then the only tool that we want to provide is the code interpreter, because that is the only one that is needed to read the contents of the file and produce visualizations for us. So we created the assistant using client.beta.assistants.create. Next, let's create it. Now let's upload the CSV file that I showed you. So we have client.files.create endpoint, the files endpoint that OpenAI has. So let's use it to upload a file in binary format. So let's do that. It's the same file. And then let's create a thread and pass in the user message. So here we'll create a thread using threads.create and pass in the messages array. We'll pass one message, a user message. And here's the important detail. We're passing in the file ID of the file that we just uploaded. And then in the content, we'll say that here's a CSV file containing the person's monthly earnings and savings in dollars for the year 2023. Let's bring it down. Create three data visualizations based on the trends in the CSV file. Right now, let's create a thread and run the assistant. So client.beta threads.runs.create, this one basically invokes the assistant, and so it creates a run, and we would have to retrieve this is an asynchronous call, so we would have to check the run's status before we can do anything with it. So let's check. Right now it's in progress, so we need to poll it multiple times until the run status changes to completed, and after that we will have the response from the assistant. So it would take a few minutes or a few seconds depending on the task that we had given the assistant to do. Right now, since this API is in beta version, we had to do the polling. In the future, they would enable streaming and easy way to retrieve the runs status. Okay, now the run status turned completed. So we can look at the messages now. We can retrieve the messages and see what are the messages that the assistant returned. So to do that, we need to retrieve the messages. So we'll use client.beta.threads.messages.list. This would give you the entire messages array for this thread. We'll pass in the thread ID and let's run it. Now, once we have run it, let's print the entire message and see what it looks like. So this is the entire message. So there's a data array at the top, and you would see all the list of messages here. The latest message will be at the top of the array, and the old message would be at the bottom of the array or at the end of the array. So here this is the assistant's response that we have got. So here you can see that it has written an image file for us. It has given the file ID, and it has given us some explanation on what those file contains. This is a big message, so let's do some formatting to read it easily. So I've got a utility function written to print the message in a more convenient manner to read it more easily. So let's print that and see. Okay, here it is. So each message is separated by this separator. So we'll see the first message that we have got is we've got an image file returned, and I think it's returned a single image file with three plots, three graphs basically. The one we asked for three graphs, and it has written three graphs. So you can see a line plot illustrating the showing the trend of earnings over the year, and a line plot illustrating the trend of savings over the year, and a bar plot comparing earnings to savings. And then if you read from the bottom, it would clearly say what did the assistant do with the data and how did it arrive at those visualizations. Let's see. Let's try to display the messages. So here I've written a simple function to get the images from the data array. So the topmost element in the messages is the data array. So we are looping through that and then checking if the particular message is from the assistant, and if it's so, then we are looping the content array and finding just the image file IDs. We need just the image file IDs to display it. So we are checking if the content type is image file, and if so, then we are using the client.files.content API call to basically download that file. And then we are basically, if there is multiple image files written, then we want to append them, or we want to collect them in an array and then display all the images. Here in this case, we just got one, so it should have just one element. This is a simple utility to resize the image. Let's run this. And then here is the part where we display the image. We use the pillow library to do that. So we loop through the image files array and then open up each image and then resize them and then display them. So let's see. Okay, cool. These are the three images that the assistant produced for us: the earnings trend, the savings trend, and the earnings versus savings bar chart. So this is cool. So this shows you how to upload a file, provide some data, and then ask or query the assistant to provide visualizations, trend analysis, whatever that we want. This is a simple example, but you get the point. We can do much more with it. Lastly, earlier I showed you that we need to keep retrieving the runs status manually to see whether it is completed. So here I've just automated the polling process using a simple callback function. So here is the main function that runs that basically executes in a loop and checks for the runs status. It retrieves the run status in a loop, and then if the status is completed, it invokes a callback function, and then the callback basically does the job of reading the message and then displaying the message. So let's see. So this one takes a thread ID as input, run ID as input, and a callback function as input, and then basically keeps calling the runs.retrieve on the thread ID and the run ID passed, and then whenever it sees the status is completed, it calls the callback function. The callback function is simple. It checks if the status is completed, and then it calls the display messages function. In the display messages function, we're basically doing the same thing that we did at the top. We're basically retrieving the entire messages, and then we're printing the messages, and finally we are getting the images and then displaying the images as soon as the run is completed. So let's see this in action. So we'll create a new thread. We'll say thread 1 and pass in the same user message. Nothing different. It's exactly the same. And let's run this, a new run. Now let's call that get assistant response. So here, if you see, we don't have to run it manually. It basically does the polling for us, and then once it's completed, it will display the message, display the images. Okay, now it has completed successfully. It's able to, we are printing the messages similar to the above one. This time it has produced three different kinds of visualizations, and then we're printing that. Okay, so just a quick tutorial to show how to work with files and utilize the code interpreter to produce some visualizations based on the contents in the file. That's it. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.